everyone. Welcome back to Scienceholic's 2023 webinar series, A Journey into the World of Chemistry. Thank you so much to you all for your interest in today's session about green chemistry. And we are very excited to welcome Dr. Predrag Petrovic. He'll be talking about his experience today in the field and about his research at Yale University. My name is Emma. I am the host of today's webinar, and Sabrina will be co-hosting, so she'll be helping us out in the chat. Now, before we start, I'm just going to give you guys a brief introduction on who ScienceHolic is. So we are a youth-run nonprofit that aims to introduce intricate scientific concepts in a manner that is fun and comprehensible to teens. We also provide volunteer and leadership opportunities to teens all over the world, including those who have English as their second language. Our main mission is to serve as a free resource for students to learn more about various STEM topics. Other than this webinar branch that we have, we also publish seasonal magazines. So we just published our 7th edition in April of this year, and it's a biology themed magazine, so feel free to go check that out after this webinar. Now, without further ado, Dr. Petrovic, welcome again. Would you mind giving us a brief introduction about yourself?
Of course, thank you, Emma, and thank you for inviting me, first of all. My name is Predrag Petrovic, and currently I'm Associate Research Scientist at Yale School of the Environment. And more specifically, I'm employed as a researcher at the Center for Green Chemistry and Green Engineering. So I originally started my journey into science and academia by doing basic or bachelor studies at the University of Belgrade in Serbia. And my specialization or major, because the system is a little bit different from what you have or in the United States, but my field of study was chemistry, like general chemistry. And then later, toward my graduation day, I specialized more into inorganic chemistry. And then I heard about the computational chemistry. And my supervisor, that was later my mentor for both my master's and my PhD, actually has a computational group in Serbia. And I was very excited about that. And I started studying and learning more about the computational chemistry and how I could contribute and how I could do research by sitting in front of a computer instead of going to the lab. Because at my time, back in the early 2000s, when I started chemistry, the concept of green chemistry, which I will talk about more today, is actually was not very well spread, at least in my part of the world. The only chemistry that I knew about was pretty classical, something that you would hear about chemistry. When you think first about chemistry, is like, okay, there is a lot of bad stuff happening, some dangerous thing, and that didn't sit well with me. So I decided to do something better for me at that time, and that was computational chemistry. So with the connections with my supervisor in Serbia, I got my research in my PhD, which was theoretical and experimental investigations of metallic complexes. So basically, I was just trying to see what is going on within the molecules. And then after my PhD, I met my current boss, my supervisor here at Yale. His name is Paul Anastas, and he's one of the major figures, and he's considered as a father on green chemistry. So when I first time heard about him, I was like, okay, father of green chemistry sounds interesting. So first of all, what is a green chemistry? And I started learning a little bit more about it. So when I was doing my first postdoctoral training, I actually worked with him on only computational chemistry on the project that was related to green chemistry, but not completely. And then he offered me to come to Yale, and I, of course, accepted because Yale is one of the most prestigious universities in the world. But more importantly, I had the chance to work with the person who actually established the whole field of green chemistry. And since 2017, I have been part of the Center for Green Chemistry, and I'm working on applying my knowledge and expertise in computational chemistry to solve a lot of problems or the topics that are explored by green chemistry. More specifically, I'm working on applying these computational methods in trying to understand how we can design and make better and safer chemicals and processes.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Now, attendees, this is just a quick reminder to put any of your questions in the chat. If I don't get to them right away, we will be sure to cover them at the live Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. Now, let's get started with the first question. So first and foremost, what sparked your interest in studying green chemistry?
Well, I already hinted a little bit in my introduction. The way how we did chemistry at the time when I was studying at the university was, to me at least, was pretty bad. There were a lot of, especially when the organic synthesis. So when you're working with organic chemistry, there is a lot of petrochemicals. Everything that we hear that is bad about the industry and all the gases and everything about the climate change actually sparked from this way. And that didn't sit very well with me. And the other thing is actually at that time, my mom said like, do you really have to work with this kind of chemistry? It's dangerous. I had a lab coat that was filled with all kinds of shades of colors, working with different kind of protective coat. So when I had a chance to get to the computational chemistry, I found it as a much better and safer way to do and to contribute to not doing all this dangerous stuff. However, this in itself is not enough. So as soon as I heard about it, so obviously I knew a little bit about the sustainability, about the green chemistry, but still it was not very close to me. So just a chance for me to work in a field that actually could enable us to have that more sustainable future, especially for generation that comes. So you guys and everybody else that will come to this planet actually was something that motivated me to see how I can contribute. And I have been at the center since 2017, and this I think tells you something about the possibilities. And I'm pretty happy with all the projects that I have been involved with. So first of all, it's not just that I can contribute through my computational background. The big point of me, just the interest in working with the green chemistry is actually working with all kind of people that are involved within the center and that are collaborating with us as well. So there are different people that have different specialities, not just chemistry backgrounds. They are biologists, they are engineers, they are business offices, so business MCS, basically people who are from different branches of science, but also the other studies that actually intersect and contribute to the whole sustainability and environmentalism movement. So just seeing how I can contribute to this and working with all these amazing people was something that really pushed me toward this research and this kind of life.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, now, what were the challenges that you faced while pursuing your studies and academia? And also, what were the highlights?
So one of the major challenges in any kind of academical pursuits is always the time and effort that you have to put into understanding and exploring some kind of field. That can be really anything, and you have to dedicate a lot of your time that you could probably use for something else. But if you have proper guidance, so the mentors and the peers, the colleagues who are working with you or alongside of you within the studies or in academia in general, then the life can become much easier. Now, the problem with the education system sometimes around the world is that not everything, not the way how I guess the curriculum is presented was not always ideal. It was more of the memorization especially for some kind of subjects. But then you had professors or other teachers, educators that would tell you in a different way, that would spark your creative thinking or thinking outside of the box, or just trying to apply your knowledge in a different way, or just trying to not test you on how much you can memorize certain chemical reactions, or I don't know, telephone book or something similar, but actually force you, or not force, but more encourage you to think in how you would come to solve the problem. So that would actually be the highlight as well. So the general education that I have received during my training time, both as a bachelor and master and PhD, was actually gaining a lot of knowledge that's actually provides you with the proper mindset to approach any kind of problem. Especially for me, that was important because when I started working within green chemistry field, that was something that I never started thinking about. But then, because of all the tools that I have received, was during my formal training in different fields. Chemistry, of course, very important, but understanding the way how the experimentalists think and work, but also theoretician and computational chemist as well, is actually gave me a very good perspective of on the way or the problems that can be attacked from different angles. The other highlight that I was achieving are actually the people that I encountered throughout the career. So both colleagues that I learned from, so my mentors, my older colleagues in the groups that I have been working on, then my supervisors, but also the other professors and the people that I met at different conferences. There would be different kind of interactions where you spark the discussion and you get passionate about thinking of the topics. And of course, academia and any kind of setting is always the place where the debates can become heated and there is a lot of disagreement, but then there is a lot of respect as well. There is a lot of interaction from the different perspectives, and if you are ready to accept this kind of way that you can be mistaken or that your way of thinking is maybe not proper enough, and then maybe somebody else brings something new, spark to your way of thinking, I think that's very, very important for anybody in any kind of field.
Mm. Yeah, would you agree like the collaboration with your peers is just as, profound as the work that you do?
Of course, this is the point of all the academia. The people who are isolated in their own cocoons are actually not. So at one point in time, like when the science was still developing in hundreds, 200 years ago, it was much easier to work alone to get to the. But we noticed in the last couple of decades that actually, especially multidisciplinary research, where you have people that come from different kind of fields and with their own perspective gain a lot of understanding, and our advancement of knowledge in all fields just exploded because some of the concepts that you might have in biology or physics or some other branch of STEM sciences can actually very well intersect with chemistry specifically. But then when you start thinking about the social impacts on the other hand, and then maybe some psychological impacts. We have a project, for example, that is currently on the edge between the medicine, psychology, and the chemistry and environmentalism. And we are thinking about the way how the different, uh, I would say, like stressors and different influences in psychology, on the psychology, is actually met with, or intersect with the environmentalism and green chemistry. So working together, especially with the most multidisciplinary field, has become very, very, very important.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, our next question, are there any books on the topic of green chemistry that you would recommend to students who are interested? Now, yeah, I think a majority of our audiences would be, high school students in the United States. So what recommendations do you have for them?
So the seminal book on the green chemistry is actually called the Green Chemistry Theory and Practice. This is specific book that tells you about the principles of green chemistry, the foundational aspects. So basically back in the 90s when the field was established, so when my supervisor was thinking at the beginning of the 90s, what are the ways, because he also didn't like the way how the chemistry was working and what was thinking. So he was sitting together with some other people on this topic, and they wrote a book that actually introduces the green chemistry principles. So there are 12 principles of green chemistry that are basics, but this is not just like a rules that you should follow about the sustainability, making things less toxic, but it also provides a good framework to so the concepts that you should be thinking about to make your research better. And this is also tying in into the general concept of sustainability that is very important for everything. So this is the one book that is very important, and that is also understandable by the level of topic that people at your age can also follow. The other book is called Introduction to Green Chemistry by Matthew. Just give me a second. I have the name. Albert Matlack. So these are two books on the green chemistry that are very interesting. And of course, there are more books that are more specialized. And one of them is the one that was mentioned at my profile at the beginning that we recently wrote. This is more towards the chemist, that people that are actually starting college start and thinking about the way how we can design chemicals. However, what I have to stress a lot is that for you guys that are still at the level of high school, that are started thinking about the science, I think it's very important to introduce the concepts of sustainability, but also green chemistry, because we need to start thinking about these things holistically. And we need to start thinking about the systems, because everything that we do will have some kind of impact on everything else that we do. So just started thinking about these concepts at the beginning from the already high school age is very important. Now there are people who are working with the project. So one of the non-profit organization called Beyond Benign is actually working with the K-12 students to bring the concepts of sustainability, green chemistry to these levels. And I know that some of the teachers are still working with the even preschool kids to just introduce the way of thinking, because if we don't have this availability of information to understand what kind of problems we are actually encountering in our daily lives, then we cannot really think about changing these things. And as soon as we start thinking, then we will be able to achieve the changes that we all need, because we all want to live, or at least some of us that are working in this, we want to leave better world for our children and the people who are coming after us.
Yes, I love that idea. Thank you so much. Yeah, and now this is sort of related, but what is your advice for high school students considering a career in the field or any STEM field?
Well, it's always about passion, right? You're always thinking about, first of all, I would not force anybody to do the STEM just because, this is something that is very important. But if you have a passion, if you want to make changes, and you have a way to have your logic. So for me personally, when I was young, when I was in the preschool days or elementary school for us, one of my ideal profession was to become an inventor or a scientist or something like this. I didn't know when I was in the high school that this will actually be my call. This is something that actually developed later. I even tried to uh, diverge after my high school. I wanted to be a dentist because the money was there, but then my life took a different turn, and I discovered chemistry and computational chemistry and green chemistry, and I don't regret it at all. But basically, the motivation that pushes you is just that you still have time to decide. So even if you are in high school, you still have time to decide on what you're passionate about. And I would advise exploring different type of passions. If you can have any kind of internships or research projects with people who are working in the field. For example, currently I'm working with one incoming undergraduate to Yale that was last year a senior in high school, and he was working with us on a project. And this year he's also working, he continued basically working on a similar project. And I also have I think he's now 16-year-old, I guess sophomore, right? If it's high school, not exactly sure. I haven't grown in this system in United States, but
Yeah, no,
he's also
that's
working with
about, it's about right.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so he's working with us on a project, and he's very excited. So this gives you a little bit of information and a sense of what kind of environment the academia is. So if you can get the any kind of internship with the research that seems interesting to you in any kind of STEM field, and work over the summer a little bit just to see if this is something that you will be passionate about. But definitely exploring your passions, and basically when you get to the university, you still have time to decide what kind of direction you want to take. Just take your time, think really about what you want to have in life. There are people who want to focus on the research, who wants to be academics, professor, who like to work with the students to transfer the knowledge. There are people who want to work in the research, just to advance the knowledge that we can have on this level. And there are people who like to work in industry, and this is all fine and well. And whatever you choose for yourself will be fantastic. This is my best advice.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you so much. Now, on to our next section of questions, which are more related to research. All right, first up, what does a typical day at work look like for you?
Okay, so I was thinking about this question just prior to this webinar, and I can say that my days are actually not very typical. So it really depends on the project that I'm focusing at the moment, and this dictates a lot my time. Now, this is very specific to myself. This is not a typical that anybody would have, but in general, there is a lot of email reading that you were trying to understand correspondence, collaboration, especially if you're having a interaction or projects with different people. There is a lot of time spent on just reading through the emails, trying to figure out what is going on. However, if there is a research project that is active in a sense of trying to generate some kind of data or perform calculation, a lot of my days would be just sitting in front of my computer and trying to get the code or to prepare the files that I need to run or analyze the data. Now, if I'm working on a paper, on an article, then a lot of my time will be just focused on trying to understand, reading a lot of literature. So this is one big part of every day of any kind of scientist, is reading through a lot of articles, like scientific articles, books, reviews, that tells you a little bit more on the background. And of course, connecting to this, you cannot avoid it. It's the social networks. So basically, Twitter or the LinkedIn, the one that I'm more focused on, because a lot of information that is shared is actually checking what is going on, because a lot of people are actually publishing, okay, so my latest article on this and this topic is at this link, so please check it out and see if this is something that interests you. There are other for example, publications like journals or publishing houses that often just publish the whole section of maybe whole volume of some article where you can go, and depending on your interests and your projects, you can go through a lot of them, and reading through all of this stuff can take a lot of time. So depending on the uh, time of year or on the type of project I'm working on, either generating the data, analyzing the data, or writing something, that will actually dictate how my day will look like. But it's usually, there is not a like a structure, like, okay, you come at this time and then you go at this time, or you, some people like to have a very organized days to, like, for example, the first thing in the morning, they will read a couple of emails, then focus on some stuff, but that really depends. Professors have it and teachers have it very, very hard because they're very usually sought after. So they have a consultation with students. They have, I would say, maybe 1 or 2 million emails active at all times. And this is not exaggeration. You have like very, very large number of emails that you actually don't have always the time to go through, but they're trying to. And then, of course, they're all part of some kind of committees at their departments, and they need to go to the meetings. And if you can catch them, that's very, very important. But sometimes it pays off to be persistent and just if you need some information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, just going off of what you mentioned earlier, I think that is really interesting what you said. I never thought about the role of social media in academia and sharing resources that way. Yeah.
It's very important because there is a lot of information. Of course, people there are newsletters, but a lot of information that is disseminated is actually going through the social media. Mostly that's Twitter or X, how they call it now. I know that some people are going with the TikToks, but that's not in the STEM field. The Twitter or X is still the most relevant. And then the LinkedIn, of course, because you have a network of people that you are connecting to, and you can still follow the pages of certain publication or companies. That there is a lot of information that you can get there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Now, what are you currently researching? What were some of your recent projects?
Okay, so as I mentioned just at the beginning of my introduction, my general project, so overall project, is finding the ways how I can apply different kind of computational methods that I'm familiar with, uh, and basically applied them to solve different kind of issues that are existing within the green chemistry field, but mostly towards the safer chemical design. Now, what this practically means is usually working with in collaboration with a lot of colleagues around the center or our collaborators outside of Yale. And for example, we were working recently on a project that involved uh, so let me see how the best describe it. So basically that would be, uh, we all know that there are trees that are used in industry to generate paper. So one of the things that is a waste product in this industry is actually called lignin. This is part of the cell wall of the plant, and this lignin material is usually just burned. So they don't know exactly what to do with them. However, one of the projects in the center that we're working on is trying to find ways to make this residual material actually useful. And there are a neat chemical reaction that we can use to actually transform this, like at the first glance, like useless product, and make something that is actually useful. Because this is renewable resource, we are trying to diverge from using a lot of petrochemical industry products, so using the oil to transform to get some plastics or polymers or some value chemicals, something that can be used in different kind of chemical industry or pharmaceutical industry. So we are finding the ways how to transform this. And one of my colleagues were using a technique called electrochemistry. So basically using a currents to do some kind of transformation. However, the problem, so she managed to do the reaction. She did create the product that she wanted. However, she didn't understand what was exact mechanism of this transformation. So my role was to actually model in collaboration with with my colleague and some other colleagues that were working on some analytical methods and try to understand how exactly this product was made, just to explain it. And why this is important is actually, if you want to understand how better to do some of the reaction, then it's a very important to know the mechanism of that same reaction. So my role was uh, uh, to simulate using computational methods to simulate how this reaction could happen on the model system. And this is the most condensed way, I would say, to describe this. But in general, the current project that we're working on is actually involving understanding how properties of chemicals, so physical chemical properties such as volatility or the molecular mass or maybe density, or how easily they are soluble in water or in some oils, basically how these properties and some other can influence the behavior of different molecules. And why this is important is actually, if you think about our chemicals or the products that we get in, so the big problem is that we don't understand, or we didn't understand, or people didn't want to understand, is what will happen once this product is actually finished with usage. Yeah. So, for example, we have these sunscreens, and we cover them, and then we go into the sea, and these sunscreen products get washed into the environment. So we didn't think about what would happen with the chemical product or sunscreen when you put it in the environment. And of course, there are a lot of regulations of how you can change. So what kind of chemicals need to be in order to be relatively safe. However, didn't come into being until, I don't know. So basically, 1960, I think 3 or something like this. There was a big uh, problem in the United States with birds dying. And why they were dying is because some of the pesticides were getting into the uh, fishes or into the environment, and then birds that were eating this fish actually started dying because they were poisoned by these pesticides. And this environmentalist called Rachel Carson wrote a book about this, Silent Spring. It's a very interesting read. And this basically started this big process of changing our way of thinking about the environmentalism. There was a lot of regulations that were back in the 1970s started introducing. So different parts of the world have their different way of regulating. So the American United States have this Environmental Protection Agency. European Union have their own chemical agency. Japan has its own. China has its own. So basically, every part of the world, every government started thinking about the ways. And now, when we are thinking about these chemicals, so what we already made was already problematic because people didn't know or didn't think about what these chemicals or materials would do when they get into the environment. And a lot of them are actually very toxic, very problematic, hazardous in one way or another. And if we can understand prior to getting these chemicals into our environment, if we can understand what will be their environmental fate, how they will behave, we can actually design better chemicals that will be safer and that can be used or useful just during their own lifetime, so useful lifetime. And once they finish with their lifetime, they could probably get degraded or disposed in some way that's actually safe for the humans, for the environment, and for all the creatures that live in the environment. So this is something that is currently our focus, and this is actually the project that these students that I mentioned just a bit earlier are involved with as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Now, these are all sort of intertwined. What were some advances in that were made in green chemistry in the last several years?
So the thing with the green chemistry, of course, as I said, back in the 90s, when it was established as a concept that we should change our way of thinking how we do chemistry, is actually sparked a lot of different approaches. So problem is that not all chemists are thinking on the chemistry that is supposed to be green. They're often thinking about, okay, there are some, like somebody else will do that. But what I've noticed is that a lot of departments in the university, but also companies, are started thinking about all the issues that were raised by the green chemistry principles and approaches. So there is a lot of, so first of all, green chemistry as a concept is very broad. So and at the level that we are discussing with the people, how much they know about. I don't know how much everybody learned about the chemistry, but generally what the greatest directions are actually changing the ways how the traditional chemistry is pursued. For example, the people have developed the methods that actually use instead of these very problematic solvents and very high amounts of solvents, they are finding ways to use better solvents, or the solvents that actually don't you don't need the reaction that you don't need solvents, but use water. So water is the best solvent because it's environmentally friendly. If we can do our reaction in water, that's the best. So people are developing the ways how to do exactly this. The latest trend that is actually in the last couple of years is connected to this lignin that I mentioned. So basically finding the way how to valorize or find a useful ways to use lignin and some other products. So usually the products that are considered as the waste products from the fishing industry or, for example, agricultural industry. So these products are thrown away, burned, or whatever. But the green chemistry or the processes that have been developed are actually focusing on these byproduct and trying to find a way how to make them useful that would actually be uh, connected to different parts of the world and not just like a developed world.
Yeah,
But as I
got it.
said, it's a lot of like broad things. A lot of people are thinking about the better ways to do chemistry, and but I would say maybe the best the current focus should be the finding way how these waste products and also the including the circularity into the thing. And so when I say about circularity, it's basically trying to connect how the chemicals or products are behaving and what their role and fate will be throughout their whole life, from the conception, design, throughout the use to the disposal, going to recycling or reusing and similar process.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really interesting and, frankly, very important. Now, what has been a memorable experience from your years of doing research?
Well, I would say the most memorable experiences are twofold. So one personal experiences that are connected to finding some results that you didn't expect. So basically just trying to solve a problem and then finding a solution to this problem and just figuring out that is mind-blowing completely. This is on one hand. On the other hand, are actually interaction with people. So when you go to different conferences or if you're interacting with the people that are in your field or in generally working with or engaging with these people are actually the best part of any research. So when you have a chance to discuss your work or the other people work and just disseminate the ideas or talk about different concepts and problems, this is actually what is very, very thrilling. And recently, I have been to the conference in on the West Coast. It's one of the annual conferences. Now it was 27th Green Chemistry and Green Engineering Conference, and I had interaction both with the students that were just the freshmen or undergraduates that had very interesting projects, but also finding the conversation with people that I met through some other projects and just reconnecting with them and discussing the topics about the books or the research and just engaging with them. It brings so much joy and such a I don't know, such a hope toward to better things. And then when we were promoting the book that we recently wrote, just people coming to our booth and discussing about it and being passionate on trying to understand and learn more about that. That was really very, very amazing and satisfying because people want to learn and this is evident, and they want to share their knowledge of what they learn, especially with students. So usually the educators, there was a high school student, a high school professor that came to the conference for the first time, and he said that basically he wants to change the way how the chemistry is taught in his high school, and trying to see the way. And then he found out about the conference, and he was so impressed with the people who were there and the conference itself that he said, like, I will come here all the time because I want to share with my high school students all these very interesting things.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Yep, that's very inspiring. And here is a big audience takeaway question. What can we do to help the environment?
It's the small things, right? When you're thinking about it, first of all, it's always raising the awareness of their, I mean, in the recent years, it has become obvious that our planet is the only place that we currently live, and it would be really a shame if we completely destroy it and we couldn't live. And I love to watch post-apocalyptic movies. However, I would never love to live in that kind of world. So the small things, like doing your due diligence in thinking like, okay, so if I do some small stuff, that doesn't matter, it doesn't add up. However, changing our way and approach of doing things more sustainably, and this can be just the use of single-use plastics or not use, trying to find different, but also finding the information and educating yourself if you don't have the proper channels. So at school or in your kind of environment, proper channels on the ways how things should be done better, then trying to find everything that you can by yourself and seeing what you can do from your own standpoint. So for some of the people, that would be like, okay, I want to go into the STEM research and I want to contribute to this way. For some other people would be, okay, I want to volunteer in my local community and do some kind of waste collection or helping the people that actually cannot thinking. But I think just like raising this kind of awareness to some people who actually don't have the opportunity to learn about this and why this is important is actually the best way how we can contribute to helping the environment.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's really important. And now for our live Q&A portion of the webinar. So attendees, if you all have any questions for Dr. Petrovic, feel free to answer them in the chat right now. All right, so actually, Dr. Petrovic, while questions are coming in, I'd like to ask one of sort of my own questions. So when it comes to sort of deciding your major or whatever the focus of your future education is, what would your advice be for maybe some students that are sort of unsure or on the fence of what to say, you know, when they're considering like, oh, maybe I'm more passionate about this topic, but then they're also worried about sort of future career options or any of those sort of issues that could come up? What would be your advice for them?
So I have to admit that for American system, I was always a little bit confused because I have been educated in a different kind of system. So I know that you have a lot of possibilities in choosing a major. You can change the majors, you can do the minors as well. But basically, what I've seen from the students that I met here is actually that they take their time to understand what they are actually passionate about. So one thing that you need to understand and to remember is that something that are very, very important or these career prospects at this time when you are at the high school might not be as I don't know, as lucrative or as perspective further down the line when you are at the time of graduating. So some people, of course, you know, like for example, I will just take something that is not related to STEM, but for the YouTube profession or the influencers, nobody knew that this would explode so much in the last decade, right? So the people who were studying during the 2000s, when I was a student, we had no idea that this would explode, that this would be very important, that this would be the way that people could make their own living. So anticipating what the things will be in like 5 to 10 years, it's not very easy. So my suggestion would be just to see what you yourself personally would feel passionate about during the first, I guess, 2 years, right? Because when you are focusing a little bit later, then you can then you can actually specialize in certain majors to see what is happening. But if you see that you're struggling and this is something that you're not that is not to your benefit, then I would suggest to try to just see if there is anything else that you might feel that, okay, so this is not for me, I can jump out of this. The other thing is, you don't have to succeed all the time. The failure is part of the learning. So if you think that you're very bad, maybe the professor or the teacher or your peer or the group actually was not the one that you were expecting. So just trying to give a second chance to somebody who is actually passionate about their working, I think is the best that is the best reflection on what kind of things would be interesting for you. But again, this is their experience and what they are passionate about. So you would always have to focus on your own motivation and why exactly this is interesting to me. If you're interested in studying, or if you're interested or in birds, what my I don't know what my guidance always was, that I ended up in the career that actually reflects very well to the interest that I had as a high schooler, maybe even before. I was always interested in computers. I was always interested about the books in general STEM, learning about stuff. So that all basically converged into my current career. So look into what you're passionate about currently, what is actually, I would say, hitting your heart. Maybe that's the proper expression, and see what currently exists that would be in line with that. Because what they always say is like, try to find work that you are, no, that you would do even if somebody wouldn't pay you. Of course, that doesn't mean that that would be beneficial financially, because we need to push for the living, of course, but I think that when you find a way to express or to pursue your passions, whatever they may be, art, science, like music, whatever it is, then the I guess the world finds a way. But then you have to be persistent, and you have to be tenacious as well, and then just push towards your goals. So a lot of people, when they come to the first hurdle, they just drop, and the satisfaction comes usually after you learn how to overcome these hurdles. So not every time everything will go smoothly, and this is perfectly normal, and this is not something that you should beat yourself about, because these hurdles will just help you grow as a person and in any way that you can push. So for the choice of the major, try to see what is closest to your passions and heart.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for that advice. Now we have a question from Luisa in the chat. So she says, "Thank you, Dr. Petrovic. Are there any more books or documentary recommendations for someone who is interested in any field of chemistry?"
There are a lot of books that are actually general for the chemistry. These are more specific, and usually it's the textbooks that are helping to certain fields. Uh, if you're just passionate about chemistry in general, that I don't know. I mean, for me, it was always the textbooks that were used for the courses that actually I didn't enjoy reading in the past time. So this is something that is maybe not recommendable. Some people enjoy reading the textbooks like this just because it's their personal passion and stuff. But my personal experience is when you're working in a certain field, or when you start working or thinking about different problems, then you will encounter a lot of literature. Usually these are the latest articles that are in different journals on the topic. So some of these are open to the public. Unfortunately, a lot of them are connected to different kind of paywalls, and these are usually available through the university libraries, and you can access them. So this is unfortunate and not ideal way to do it, but there is a lot of free information out there that are very valuable. Uh, Depending of the type of chemistry that you would like to learn about, I think that the people or the teachers in the curriculum, they are usually using some of the books that are in general courses. As I said, for me, the education is a little bit different, so some of these are outdated as well. So I don't know if I would recommend these personally, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, I don't have better.
Yeah, no, but that's great. Thank you so much. All right, since I don't think we have any more questions in the chat, I think we can wrap up this session of the webinar. All right, so before we end, I would like to share ScienceHolic's social media pages. We have our website, our Instagram, and our Discord here. So Sabrina also put those in the chat for you all. And so, yeah, if you would like to reach out or see more of our content, go on ahead to those sites. And here are our partners for the chemistry conference in both the webinar series and also our magazine, which our 2 volumes of chemistry related magazines will be coming out this September. So please stay tuned for that. Yeah, and now attendees, if any of you all are interested in working with us here at ScienceHolic, there are various ways that you can do so as shown here. There are 6 teams. I am part of the outreach team, but varying due to your interest, you can choose to apply into our different teams. And if you also want a low commitment way that you can help us out, you can choose to apply as an ambassador as well. And if you would like to hear more updates in the future on articles, magazine releases, and also webinar updates, please feel free to join our mailing list. And yeah, so Sabrina has all those links there for you all in the chat. And yeah, that will be all for today. Thank you so much for attending the webinar. And of course, a big thank you to Dr. Petrovic for your time. Thank you so much. And you all can visit Dr. Petrovic's website here. You can find a lot of his work and also other resources there in the website in the chat. So yes, please feel free to go visit. And his email is also in the chat. So if any of you all have questions that pop up, you can reach out to him from there. And yep, so that'll be all for today, but please tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. for our next session, which is Chemistry Beyond the Lab, Everyday Applications, and Surprising Connections. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your day.